I'll start recording. Welcome to the last day of class, week 17, day 2. And we'll just have some minutiae to go over today. I don't think anything important. Yeah, your projects have to be done. Try and have them done by Tuesday. So if there's any things like, you need to do this or that, you have a couple of days to get it done by Thursday. Everything has to be in by Thursday. Friday's technically, I think, not part of finals week at all. So the bots beat you to it. Yeah, that's so ridiculous. Did you see how there's like a bill in Congress right now to prohibit scalpers? It's called like the Grinch Act or something like that. I don't know. Maybe you're the one that posted the news for that. Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, how do you prove that a bot, bought something? I don't know. Yeah, the good news is, sure, you didn't get your 30 series, but guess what? 40 series is coming out soon, and then you can watch the scalpers buy out all the 40 series ones too. Honestly, though, what's really funny is that it's just a matter of the graphics card companies not charging enough money, right? Like, if they charged market price for their goods, there wouldn't be any margin for scalpers to operate on. So that's why EVGA raised the prices of their cards hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So there's absolutely no incentive for scalpers to buy something and resell it. Yeah, the 40 series can use up to 500 watts, which is hilarious. That is so much power. And it's not even the power. Where does that power go? Right? When you use 500 watts of electricity, where does that power go? Do you know? What does it turn into? Heat, right? That means, if you've ever touched a 60 watt light bulb, you know how hot that is, right? That's 60 watts of heat essentially coming out. The light energy of a light bulb is not that big a fraction of it. That's why incandescents are more or less banned these days, although they do have high efficiency incandescents. Even if you have a good cooler, it doesn't matter. You're still producing it's like 10 light bulbs worth of heat, just on when you're playing Witcher or whatever. Even if you have a good cooler, sure, it keeps the card cool, but it's dumping all of that heat into your room. And so now you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to need a cooler, right? And so I actually installed a split unit AC in this room simply because my computer generates so much heat in the summertime. So I can just turn on AC just in this room to cool down me because of all the heat this damn thing produces here. So you're going to show up to the yoga thing. It's not yoga, but yeah, okay, sure. Need a 1200 watt PSU. Yeah, my PSU, I thought it was 1,000 watts. I think it's actually not quite 1,000 watts, so I might have to upgrade that too. I don't know. I've been looking at upgrading into Alder Lake, and other than the fact that it's sold out, there's a couple major issues with it. First of all, Windows 10 performance is dicey because Windows 10 doesn't know about the big little thing. It's got 4 big cores and 4 small cores, or well, it depends. Yeah, but Windows 10 doesn't understand the difference between the different types of cores. Windows 11 does, but Windows 11 is still more or less a beta product. They're actively working on. AMD is cheap and excellent. Yeah, true. But I kind of want to try out Alder Lake, so I'm going to wait for that technology to mature. And then also the other big thing is the DDR, the new DDR specs. Actually, they've had demoed products of radically higher bandwidths on RAM that just aren't out yet. And so I kind of want to wait until those come out with motherboard support for them, and then upgrade into it. Because right now, the improved DDR performance doesn't translate at all into game performance. So I wish you can get into this type of stuff. It's a thing. It's like a hobby. Working on a computer and modding it and upgrading it. And I looked into getting a closed loop cooling system. And my last graphics card, the 2080 Ti, I had the there's something wrong with the fans. Not that it didn't work. They just, like, you know how normally you can control the fans from your computer? You know, like you can run Afterburner or whatever and like turn the fans on and off. Like it used to do that and then it just stopped. And then it just was always in auto mode where it would just turn on full speed and then turn off. And it didn't have any hysteresis in it, which means that when it triggered at whatever temperature it was set to go on at, it would go at full bore. And then when it would cool down, it would turn off. And so it would sit there and bounce back and forth between full bore, 100% fan, and off. And nothing I set within Afterburner or any of the other tools that I downloaded did anything. Like it just decided at one point it's just going to have auto mode on the fan permanently and not allow any user control over the system. And that was one of the major reasons why I wanted to upgrade out of it, was just because the fans were so damn annoying on it. There's no class that does this, like PC building and stuff. Yeah. I think the IS department has like a PC building class and stuff like that. Or at least they used to, where you like tear it apart and rebuild it and stuff like that. But yeah, no, this is a class where we talk about nerd stuff like that. Yeah, so that was really one of the reasons, and one of the reasons why I got an EVGA with a really good cooling system on it, because the last one, the fans just annoyed the hell out of me. I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna run this thing. Like, I'm just gonna turn on a, you know, wallpaper engine in the background just to run it so it doesn't cool down. You know, I'm just gonna burn extra power so it just stays on, because it's more annoying to have it go on and off constantly. So I'm just gonna make more heat and just keep it on, and then it'll just fade into the background. Recalibrating BIOS, nothing I did. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I updated the BIOS on it, and at some point there was some update that just broke it, and nothing I did would control the fan speed anymore. So recalibrate and yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I did everything, and you know, I didn't just try one tool. I tried all of the tools, and unable to sync your files. That's fine. So yeah, with the 3090 though, no problem. And it used to work on it, you know. So I'm pretty sure it just something broke at some point. But then when I upgraded to 3090, yep, I got control again. So here's my EVGA Precision, and it shows you the clock speed, and the GPU is running at a nice, cool 34 degrees Celsius, and that's with, you know, all the stuff going on. And I'm using the graphics card, right? I'm streaming both on Discord and on OBS right now, so I'm actually like using a good percentage of the GPU to do all this, and this thing is like ice. Like, it's nice, you know. Fans are off, right? The fans are off right now. The thing's pretty underclocked, low temperature. Okay, the fans are at 33%, but they're, yeah, I can hear them, I guess. But they're pretty quiet right now. Like you have to like kind of. Okay, yeah, they're on. Yeah, but it's not in any way noticeable. It's got a really nice cooling system. So your GPU can't even handle Halo Infinite. Yeah. So yeah, when the 40 series comes out, just join the EVGA queue. That's the best solution I've seen so far to the scalping problem. Newegg has done a lot of anti-scalping, you know, mitigation measures, but a lot of that just boils down to we got a shipment. Log on in the next 10 minutes if you want a shot at it, and then you just kind of hope you get something you want to buy. The EVGA queue worked a lot better for me. I put my name down on 3 different 3090s, 3 different versions of it, and the one that I wanted popped first. And when you get an email from them, you have 8 hours to buy the card, or you lose your 8 months in the queue. I discovered the email about 10 hours in, and I went, no! And hurriedly went on to the EVGA website, and it still honored it. So I was like, oh, thank goodness. And just like, take my money, please, and threw a ton of money at them. And then turned around and sold my 2080 Ti. And so it turned out to be a $400 video card or something. I don't know. Like, you know, like everyone's like, oh man, what a baller. You got a 3090. I'm like, yeah, it cost me like, I don't know, $300 or $400, something like that. You know, maybe a little more if you factor in eBay's, because eBay takes a chunk out of your sale, which would have been like probably like $200. It was probably like a $600 video card when you factor in shipping and eBay's cut and all that stuff. I didn't sell my 2080 Ti for as much as I thought I would. I thought I would get a little bit more money for it. And I got this at below MSRP, which was also nice. EVGA honored their original prices, which was like, you know, so they actually gave me $70 off. I don't know why. So it's not only MSRP, but they're like, we'll knock $70 off because you had to wait for so long. I'm like, okay, sure, you know, I'll take that. I was willing to pay like your inflated prices now, but okay, sure, you know, I'll take that. So I got a 3090 for below MSRP. I was a little surprised my 2080 Ti didn't sell for more because it was one of the overclocked and better cooling versions of it. It didn't sell as much as the comparable products. I don't know why. Probably didn't put up a good search term or something. I probably could have gotten another $200 out of it if I had done it better, but who cares? So, yeah, legitimately though, like the thing didn't actually, the price differential is like $400 between my 2080 and the 3090. Waiting for your FAFSA drop. Yeah. So, desperate needs call for desperate measures. Yeah, so I don't know. My recommendation is when the 40 series has come out to just jump on that queue. And even if you don't buy it, because you don't have to commit to buy it, I'll just put your name down and pick out 3 cards that you would feasibly want, and then wait. Wait for it. So, rob a scalper. Yeah. So, yeah, this is really nice. Like, it shows you, it's actually got temperature sensors all across the board, and you can see all of them are actually really good place right now. You know. So I've got my thing set up so that when the temperature hits 81 degrees, it downclocks itself quite substantially. So right now it's at 2 gigahertz, and it'll downclock itself down to 1450. The fan profile, same thing. It kind of ramps up the speed based on the temperature. And so, yeah, this is the hysteresis I was telling you about. If you don't have hysteresis on and you have a noticeable jump in fan speed, it'll hit that and it'll cool down, and the fans will turn off, and then it'll hit that and the fans will turn on, and it'll hit. And so, in order to avoid that, you want to add hysteresis to your fans so that they don't just sit there and oscillate over one point, and it's really annoying. It's really human detectable. I used to run quiet. Right now, you would hear nothing, but it would also be running a little bit hotter. And so I kind of like a more gentle curve like this, where as it heats up, the fans just kind of gradually increase in speed. And usually, if I'm under load, like if I'm in an intensive video game, it'll be in the 70s, maybe not even that much, 60s to 70s. I don't know. Let me run something. Let's find out. Is this interesting for you? I don't know. Dallin, yeah, like, I don't know, you're staring at graphs. I don't know if that's interesting or not, but let's run, I don't know, Red Dead Redemption or something. So then you can watch the clock speed jump up, right? And the temperature, power level, GPU temperature. This is the target, yeah. So the memory clock speed, you'll see that. Unable to sync, really? What's going on? Okay. So you'll see that as I start running the game, all these stats are going to go up. You're not going to see the game. The game's on monitor 1. But you can watch the... do I have graphs over here? Power setting. There you go. Hardware monitor. So this is temperature of the GPU. So you can see that starting to creep up a little bit. The GPU clock, when it comes under load, it goes up to full clock speed. When it's not needed, it down clocks itself. Memory clock speed is basically the same. And then this is memory usage. So I've got it's not open yet. So you'll see as it loads the game, it should the memory usage should creep up as well. And then our frame rate over here. CPU at 68 degrees is max is fine. Yeah, your Corsair all-in-one can make it work. Yeah. I hear. Oh, there you go. It's open. Yeah, I actually used to use an all-in-one, and I watched a Linux Tech Tips video about how he kind of like dogs on all-in-one a little bit more than I think he should. Activation errors. Am I just not on? I can't play Red Dead Redemption. Fantastic. It's the Rockstar Social Club down again. What is going on? Let me reboot Steam. I wonder if Steam's just offline right now or something. I have to quit this. Okay, fine. All right, so while that's rebooting, NVIDIA Omniverse. Never heard of it before. So you might have heard that the multiverse is becoming a reality or something. I don't know. The subsurface scattering, by the way, right? So with all the billions of dollars flowing into the multiverse, which is based on Neil Stephenson's novel Snow Crash, which came out when I was actually working in VR back in the day. Zuckerberg and all these other people, NVIDIA, are trying to build it. So all sorts of fun privacy. All right. Let's see if maybe I'll just launch Borderlands. All right. Let me get Evga Precision running again. And you kind of see what's going on behind the scenes when you do this kind of stuff. And it's for developers. There you go. Open beta. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. All right. insight. Yeah, that's what I was talking about last time, right? How they've got these benchmarking things that show you what you're wasting your time doing in a video game. It's really important stuff. All right, so here we got you. Let's see if Red Dead Redemption will launch. This looks kind of fake and uncanny, yeah. So this is the last day of school. Do you have any? Like I said, we're just kind of tooling around today. There's no particular plan. You need to demo me your mod and your project next Tuesday, next Thursday, while this is launching. But yeah, you got half an hour left in the semester. Is there any questions you want? Anything you're curious about? Video game design. It's a big field, right? We talk about sequencer and Unreal Engine, making movies inside of Unreal Engine, how to make money doing this kind of stuff. You can sell assets on the game store if you're good at modeling, and if you're good at coding, you can probably sell stuff on the store as well that way. You do contract work. If you put out enough stuff out there, you might be contacted people. In fact, I was just contacted yesterday by somebody who wants to hire me here in Clovis, and yeah, I was like, all right, it's interesting. So okay, there we go. Rockstar. All right. Story mode. So let's see how this thing. Hardware monitor. Here comes. We've got 24 gigs of RAM on here. Let's see how much it seats up. I'm running on 4K resolution. It's loading right now. Temperature's up to 42 degrees. Memory is now running at full speed. There it is. It's loading. You're going to want your memory running at full speed as you're pulling stuff off disk. It just pulled a big chunk off the SSD. It's still loading over here. Yeah, you guys get jobs mapping and freelance work is another way of doing it. All right, here we are. The game's open now. All right. Where are we, Arthur? I'm getting 62 frames a second right now. There's my horse. Come here, dummy. That's the name of my horse. All right, so we're at only about half the memory is being used right now. It's only using 12 gigs out of 24. You can see that. See the temperature creeping up there? Somebody help me. What happened here? Oh, you're shooting me, really? I'm trying to help. Oh, they're bandits, huh? "71 degrees now. Why? They're all dead, dude. I killed them all. Alright, well that was exciting. So we're at 72 degrees now. The clock speed on the card is almost maxed out, not quite. Memory is almost maxed out. The memory usage, though, it's not able to use more than, I guess, 12 gigs of RAM on this. Let me run around a little bit. No, it's, I guess, holding steady at 73 now. Starting to feel heat coming out of. I feel heat coming out of my computer now. I feel like warmth over here. But yeah, as I was saying, I was listening to Linus Tech Tips, and he's not my favorite. You know, like the advice he gives is sort of marginal at best sometimes. Yeah, so he was recommending kind of against all-in-one coolers and recommending Noctua instead. And I ended up running my own experiments just because, like I said, I don't exactly trust his testing methodology or any of that stuff. And in part because all he was using was like Corsair all-in-ones, which are not, even the best. I think it was just whatever he had on hand. And so, Turkey. And so I actually had a better all-in-one than what he did. And I ran all sorts of benchmarks and tested the cooling on my CPU and noise levels and things like that. And then I switched it out for a Noctua, like he recommended. And sure enough, like the Noctua is actually a damn good product. A Noctua is an air-cooled CPU cooler. They're the size of a football, so you gotta have enough room inside of your case to cool with it. But even though the Noctua did not work as well as the water cooler, like Linus Tech Tips said, it works as good as, like, they measured the temperature on it. It didn't. The water cooler actually cooled my CPU better than the Noctua. But the reason why I actually kept the Noctua, I was going to try it out, switch it out, and then if it didn't work as well, return it. I ended up sticking with it because when I'm not loading my CPU, which is most of the time, let me quit out of this. Most of the time I'm not, actually, before I quit out of Red Dead, let me show you the task manager here. So, Red Dead Redemption is using 22% of my CPU. It's not loaded. You know what I mean? It's probably on 1 core or 2 cores, something like that. Resource monitor here. And here we go. And so, let's not quit. Let's just play this a little bit. And so this is actually something probably good for you to do when you're just developing in general or in game development. Is when you play your game, keep monitors open on your second monitor, like hardware monitors on your second monitor, and you kind of see what's actually happening, right? So video games are usually not very multi-threaded. This one appears to be doing all right. Like it's got a good load on CPU core 1, and then the other ones are sort of moderately loaded. So that's not bad actually. That's not the worst I've seen from a video game. But you can see overall, it's still just not really stressing my CPU very much, and that's very common. Video games usually don't really cause your CPU to overload, So I'm at 50% actually right now. So it's not. So the CPU is not producing that much heat, right? Think about it. Like if you're not burning, the watts through your CPU, it's not producing heat. All the watts that your thing consumes turns into heat, right? And so with let's click over here. With this thing really not even stressing my CPU very much, I don't even think the Noctua is on right now, or if it is, I can't hear it. So one of the nice things about it, the fans are very quiet on it. But when I run like Furmark or anything that really stresses the CPU, you'll hear it turn on. But under normal circumstances, I never hear my CPU fan anymore, and that's something I really like. I got rid of my old monitor because my old monitor was too loud. Of all things, the guy just fell off a horse in front of me. Really? This guy on a horse just walked up to me, and the guy just. Oh, and they're dead. Okay. Well, only one thing to do. Go through their pockets and look for loose change. Alright, there we go. $1.75. There we go. Alright, and 4 gold teeth that I ripped out of his face, apparently. Alright, you're gonna get a nice burial. Okay, there's a river over there. Let's go. You're gonna get a water burial, Mr. 4 nice teeth. So yeah, like the all-in-one cooler though has pump noise even when it's off. Like even when you don't need to run it under load, there was this really subtle sound coming out of it that sounded like a baby was like rattling a rattle at all times. And so, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm working on some coding. I'm not stressing the CPU at all. There you go. You get a water burial, dude. All right, now I'm going to quit out of this. And I just hear. It's like a little rattle. And yeah, Linus loves Noctua coolers. And to be fair, like I'm actually quite impressed by it. It is, however, not as good as an all-in-one cooler under load. However, when I'm not under load, it is way quieter. And so I ended up sticking with the air-cooled solution after being a big fan of water cooling for a long time. And I've actually thought about doing my own like closed-loop water cooling solutions and having the glowing... Have you guys seen these things before? Like... No, not pipe. These kinds of things. It just looks like one of those like marble. You ever seen those things like for kids? Like you make these like marble tube things. You drop a marble and it like goes down the spiral and stuff like that. Kind of reminds me of that. So I've thought about building one of those just for fun because it's kind of neat. You get these like neon colored coolants, and you saw those in a PC Bang in LA. A PC Bang is of course a cafe, right? Like an internet cafe. Good. Yeah. So I don't actually really care what my PC looks like. I mean, I resisted the RGB trend for years, and now I've got an RGB mouse pad and RGB keyboard that syncs with Wallpaper Engine, and that's mostly so that well, it does some other things too, but like I can check the temperature of my case by just looking over at it, because my case's LEDs on it reflect the internal temperature state, so I don't actually have to have the hardware monitors I had up open. I could just glance down and be like, okay, we're doing pretty well right now. And and so the lights on my video card are the temperature of the video card. The lights on the motherboard are the temperature on the motherboard. And I could just glance down and see at a glance how hot my system is. It's kind of actually useful, That all these gaming rigs, yeah, it's really cool. That's really cool. Where in LA was it? Built-in water cooling. It's like a motorcycle. Yeah. That's how you know your game wasn't well received. Yeah, these kinds of things. It's pretty fun, and it's more for my GPU than anything else, because my CPU, like I said, like unless I'm deliberately running like benchmarking on my CPU, like it never hits max, and so it just doesn't produce enough heat to even cause my Noctua just like, essentially the Noctua's heatsink is large enough that it just passively cools and it's dead silent. And so if we come back over here to this, you can see the temperature has been steadily decreasing over time on it. It unloaded the memory here, and so right when it unloaded from Red Dead Redemption, you can see the temperature very quickly like went back to normal. So it took from 342 and 40 seconds to 343. So it took about 2.5 minutes to get back down to normal. So not too bad. And immediately it starts underclocking itself again. And even within like after 1 minute, it down from almost 80 degrees down to 50. But with one of the big advantages of water cooling is that when you hit the temperature cap, then the system downclocks itself, right? This thing here. So if you're running enough to hit the if you hit whatever that is, 83 degrees. If you hit 83 degrees, then the thing slows itself down. If you hit 85 degrees, it really slows itself down. So you're not getting full performance anymore. So, my system I don't think was hitting that because, I never broke 80 on that, and that's just because I have my system set up to respond with more and more fan speed, right? But if you're at full fan speed and you're hitting the cap, then you're not going to get the full performance out of your machine. And your CPU does the same thing. If your CPU exceeds the thermal threshold, and there's various thresholds nowadays, it's quite complicated. If it exceeds the thermal threshold, it downclocks itself, and so you actually are not getting all of the performance you paid for. And so when you have a cool neon green system, not only can you show off at the ultimate esport place. That's cool. 91 and 5. Okay. Oh, is this Newport Beach? Ah, no. You're way up there. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've been on beach down here at the beach. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Let's see here. Ultimate esport. That's cool. Somebody recorded the faucet. That's funny. Look at all those RTX cards, man. Please tell me those are just empty boxes. Not, I think Betancourt would cry seeing all the RTX cards just stacked up like cordwood. That's too funny. Yeah, it looks cool. Looks like a fun place. If you can cool your system, then you can actually get more performance out of it, and then you can also overclock, right? And that's something I used to be into when I was a younger man. I would overclock my system and really push it and try to see how much performance I can get out of my system. Nowadays, I'm far more concerned with having a quiet system. So I'm like the old man that yells at the kids to get off their lawn because they're making too much noise. Too much childhood exuberance. Get off my lawn, you know. Ooh, that's cool. That is a sexy machine right there. Look at that. Wow. But if you water cool, then with all the extra cooling capacity you have, you can up the voltage on your machine, up the clock rate, and it'll produce a lot more power because, you know, the power equation in physics. Right, goes up with the square of the voltage, right? So when you kick those voltage levels up, you actually start burning a lot more power, and the more power you burn, that turns into heat. So you need better cooling solutions on it. So that is pretty amazing. It's running at 27 degrees Celsius. That is pretty cool. That's really neat. So If you're like into that whole thing and like really overclocking and stuff like that. But for me, it was just more like an academic exercise. You know, would I be capable of taking the back plate off a card and attaching a cooling plate onto it? You know what I mean? And running it to a radiator and not having leaks and stuff like that. And then I read about it, and it's like, yeah, be prepared to add about a thimbleful of liquid a month to it. And I was like, where's that liquid going? It's supposed to be a closed loop. Is it evaporating? Is it dripping out onto my carpet? Like, why? Why do I need to add, a little bit of liquid every month to it? Seems like a terrible idea, And if you run low, then you start getting air in there and it starts bubbling and stuff like that. And I was looking at the noise levels of it because your pump's always running, And then I just was like, nope, I want a silent system instead. I'm going to mimic Linus, the real Linus, the Linus Torvalds, the man who made Linux, and get his whole jam these days is he wants a silent system. And I'm like, all right, I'll just be that guy instead. And so I got rid of my noisy monitor because it had a fan that was making noise. I got rid of my all-in-one because it was making that little rattling sound when it was even passively cooling and stuff like that. I didn't do the closed loop again because I don't want pump noise. And and now my system is back to normal again. So it's basically silent. Let's check the monitors. Yeah, we're back down to 39 degrees. And there we go. And that's with it using about a third of the graphics card right now. So that's my advice on building a system. I guess that's our topic for today. Building a system or something. I don't know. There's a game on Steam and on or maybe it's just on Epic Games Store. I don't know. I haven't seen, maybe it's on Steam. Called PC Building Simulation. Got to do water cooling to the outside of your room, or have your computer outside of your room. Yeah, actually, I seriously looked into this. I don't want my computer outside of my room because then all the cabling is just a nightmare, right? But I was thinking about drilling a hole out of my house, right? Like going right through the wall and insulation and the siding and all that stuff, going right out. And like a dryer vent, you know what I mean? Like installing a dryer vent. And then getting like a cardboard tube or something. Or maybe just getting, because they have ducting, right? Like at the hardware store. It's real cheap. You just duct a hose to it. And, none of this is actually that expensive. AC ducting, PC. Rear exhaust. Yeah, basically doing something like these. And then basically having a duct running from the output of my computer outside the house and just dumping the hot air out there, because then it's not in my house. Because right now all the hot air generated by all the graphics cards and CPUs, it all just dumps into my room. And in summertime it gets hot, and so what I ended up doing was just installing an AC unit, and then the AC unit can suck the heat out that way much more efficiently than having to run the whole house. The whole house AC is obviously very expensive because you're cooling the whole house down. I just installed a little thing here, and it just sucks the heat out. Good to go. I feel a little bit like Zenyatta from Overwatch, the yin and the yang, because I got heat over here and cold over here, and it's like one hand is positive energy and one hand is negative energy, something like that. Let's see here. Did I uninstall it? I must have uninstalled it. Oh no, there it is. Okay, PC Building Simulator. So, let's see if I can pull it over here. But yeah, it's a whole thing, And if you want to make money, if you get into customizing PCs and things like that, you can actually get jobs doing it. I've had friends that made money doing that, and students and things like that as well. See if I can switch this over. Career, new game. Let's see if I can pull it over here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, just being that guy, the computer guy that does this kind of stuff. I got negative $15, huh? Okay. How do I switch? Okay, there we go. Full screen off. Invert y-axis on. Quality on ultra. 1080p resolution. And we'll just pull that over there. There we go. Okay. That's funny. That's actually the desktop that I have right now. That's really funny. Okay. You must be level 5 to change your peripherals. So. You must be level 3 to build the second workshop. Alright, turn off my PC. Pick it up. Place it. Work on it. Resale value $230. How terrible is that? Remove screw. Remove the screw. There you go. Take the side off, and then you can cable it and take off the heat sinks and 970. Right, so you can kind of mess around with it. So I don't know how educational it is, but it's kind of amusing, at least to me. It was free on Epic Game Store a couple weeks ago. So I picked it up just to show my daughter how to do this stuff, because she helps me every time. Like, I'm trying to teach her how it all works. So every time I upgrade my computer, I have her get out a screwdriver and, you know, pull the parts apart and click it in and get used to it. Is this a good way of learning how to build your own PC? If you've never done it before, I would say so. I would say so. You can kind of learn what all the, because when you start a PC on the inside, like, you know, if you're looking at something like this, you're just like, I don't know what, that's an arcade game. That's not even a computer, all right? You know, what is this? What's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, you know, what does the statue do? You know, like, like what does any of this do? You know what I mean? And so, let me see, Dell Tower. Let's see if we can just find something more sane. It's all closed up, of course. I just want to see a cutaway. Okay. So, like, if you've never done any of this stuff before, this kind of stuff is, like, baffling. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these things on here, and we're out of time, but who cares? I'll explain it to you. So, you have 30 of those old Dell Towers, yeah. If you've got 30 old ones, I'd mess around with it, right? So, let's see if I can find. Let's check out one of the new ones, maybe. That's not helpful. It's too covered up. It's too covered up. Too zoomed in. I guess that'll work. Okay. So here we go. So here's a motherboard. All right. So your CPU goes here. And what you're going to do is, before you install your CPU, you need to line it up. There's a little notch on the CPU socket that shows you which way the thing, because it's a square, right? So you could rotate it 4 ways. You need to know which way is pin 0, right? And so there's usually a indicator on there. That's an old one. Yeah, there. So there's like a little triangle that like shows you where you line it up, right? So that's, I learned that the hard way back when I was in college. I dropped it in and bent the pins on my CPU. It didn't boot up, by the way. When the pins don't go into the socket, it doesn't work. And then not only did I bend the pins, there's like a little lever there, and you're like, bad mistake. I pull it out, and the pins are all like, ah. I'm like, wow, that was a $400 mistake right there, you know. And so I took out like a toothpick, and over the span of like an hour or two, I very, very, very carefully bent every single one of those pins back into position, and it worked. I actually repaired the CPU and had it work. So you can see there's a little notch here. So you have to line it up, place it in, and then this thing is going to lever down on top of it, and that's going to push the CPU very tightly into the socket. And then on top of the CPU, yeah, there's notches and triangles and things like that. Then what you do is you put your heatsink on top of it, and the heatsink, you don't want to use a stock heatsink like ever. Stock heatsinks suck if they even come with them these days, which they mostly don't do, I don't think, anymore. So what you want to do though is put a little thermal paste on it. Thermal paste allows for better heat transfer between two surfaces. So you put some like thermal paste on the top of the CPU. The Arctic Silver is the go-to standard on this kind of stuff. Put a little dollop on it, and then when you put your heatsink on top of it, the thing squeezes out, and it forms a good connection between the CPU and the heatsink, and so it transfers heat better. Because the whole point of a heatsink is that you're trying to radiate heat out of the CPU. CPUs will melt themselves if you take the heatsink off, and they don't throttle themselves fast enough. Like there's videos you can watch of people booting up with no heatsink on, and the thing literally goes and melts itself. Intel's fixed that now, but they have throttling, but it didn't work fast enough to keep it from like imploding, you know. So so then you attach the heatsink on top of it. This is terrible. All these are terrible. That's like a stock, your standard stock cooler, and it just kind of clips on. Like there's these like retention clips that just kind of pull it down. Dopey little CPU fan on top of it, little aluminum block, and yeah, you don't want no. Compare that with like an Octua, and yeah, these beasts. You need like a banana for. Okay, there's a guy's hand, right? I don't know if you can see quite how big this heatsink is. These things are not small, and there's a reason for that, right? The more surface area you have, the more would a CPU work that had a couple missing pins? It depends. Not all pins are useful. You can always try booting it up, right? So you got a CPU and the pins were bent. You try to straighten it out and they broke. You can try it. Probably not. Is my guess. If the pins do anything important, you're gonna have issues with it. So this is a smaller one, and you can clip on fans and you can clip on additional fans in between as well. And the goal you're trying to go with here, this is a fanless, which is nice. It's a passive heatsink. I didn't want to quite go this far because I want to have a fan in case I need it, you know, because this is going to be hotter under load. Right? But these giant Noctua fans, heatsinks you can clip fans on, and then they're off most of the time. That's the cool thing, is that these things don't make any noise. These are very, very quiet fans, and they're just off most of the time because it doesn't get hot enough, because this heatsink block is big enough to just passively radiate the heat from just daily use of like discording and things like that. And then if it does come under load, then you have a fan profile set up in your BIOS, and you can tell these things to turn on slowly and blow a little bit of air over them. And these things are so damn quiet, like even when this thing's on, if it's not like at high speed, like I can't hear it. And I've got a silent computer here. You know, there is no noise that comes out of my machine when it's on. And like even when I go into the BIOS and manually turn the fans on at like 10%, 20%, I can't hear them. It has to get up to like 30 or 40, then I hear like a whisper. By the time it gets up to 100, you're like that. But these things are damn good. So if you want silent, I wouldn't get the silent version of it, the passive, I would get one of the Mega Beasts, and if you have room for it in your case, of course, and just attach. They have one fan here, but you can attach multiple fans depending on what you want. This is a 2-fan version, and so your heatsink clips on to the CPU. Then you put your RAM in. Hopefully the Noctua isn't so big that that little cutout there is because your RAM oftentimes is right next to the CPU. So yeah, so the heatsink oftentimes is gonna overshadow the RAM, right? So this is like the biggest issue with those Noctuas, is that they can actually block. You actually have to measure out the distance between the CPU and the RAM slots, or it will block it. And they sell different versions of the Noctuas. I actually had to get one that had a higher profile on it, because I measured the height of my RAM, and I measured how far they were from the CPU. I'm like, the biggest one's not going to fit. So I got one that matched the dimensions on my system. So your RAM's going to go in here. And RAM usually comes in pairs. Your motherboard's either going to have 2 slots or it's going to have 4 slots under most circumstances. And you want to have, obviously, a matched pair. You don't want to have unmatched RAM. They don't even sell them that way. Your RAM is always going to come in a pair of sticks. And if you're going to have 4, in general, you want to have 4 that are exactly the same. It just seems like a horrible idea to have mismatched RAM. Like, I don't even think it would work. I think your motherboard would just tell you to go away and not torture it. So Ddr5 Ram is the top end nowadays. Ooh, it's precious. Yeah, 32 gigs for $400. Damn, dude. All right. It's like a DDR3. All right. $100 then for 32 gigs? Jeez. 16 gigs per module. And the reason for that is because you buy them in pairs, right? So there you go, 32 gigs for $80. So if you get DDR5 RAM, then you're talking $400 instead of 70. You're paying a big premium right now to go top end. And the benchmarks just don't show the performance. I went through like 24 benchmarks on DDR5 RAM, and like sometimes they're 3% faster, sometimes they're 3% slower. So there's just really no point to upgrading to DDR5 right now, especially because, like I said, there's going to be much faster DDR5s coming out. I mean, they've already been prototyped, so like these are 5600, 6000s. I think they have 8000s under prototyping production right now since last year, so quite significantly faster. Just how the caffeine hit good. So yeah, so you take your pairs of RAM sticks, they go into the slots there, and boom, you got your CPU, you got your fan, you got your RAM sticks. Your graphics card is going to go into the big one here. That's usually the spot for your graphics card. Again, you have to make sure it fits around your massive heatsink, which you should have. If you don't have a massive heatsink, you probably have an all-in-one, which is it's another route that you can go, and I've used them before, and I like them. It doesn't match well with my zero noise policy I have now, but they have a really low profile. It's actually quite nice. This thing, the hoses that stick out, they can hit the RAM, and so you have to kind of measure that. But these things don't take up all that room inside of your CPU, right? And then you have to make sure you get a case that has a attachment point for the all-in-one cooler. I bought my case specifically because it has enough room for a 3-fan all-in-one cooler for maximum performance, which is what I cared about. I bought the quietest all-in-one that I could find that had the highest performance, and it worked really well, except for that little rattling sound, which bugged me. So yeah, these things are easy to install. Like those Noctua heatsinks are gigantic, and like trying to strap them down, and then like those things are sitting there hanging off your CPU. It feels like on some motherboards they'll actually warp from how heavy the heatsinks are. You'll actually see the motherboards buckle. And so I got a motherboard that was extra reinforced so that I could hang a heavy heatsink off of it if I wanted, which I ended up doing, even though I started with the all-in-one, and then swapped out to a big heatsink later. These things are heat spreaders that are trying to get rid of the heat from probably the VRM or Northbridge on older systems. They generate a lot of heat too. So yeah, so your all-in-one's going to attach to your CPU, and the hoses run up to the top of the case where it vents the heat straight up. Traditionally, your case fans blow air from the front of the machine to the back. You've got some air filters on it that stop dust from coming in. Dust is the enemy of electronic components. I have stories about dust. Our supercomputer wasn't working, or was intermittently failing. We were going crazy trying to debug the software. Like, why is the code crashing? It was this weird intermittent bug, and it was dust. And so the guy came out to diagnose this $150,000 computer, and he's like, yeah, you got dust in it. And so he hauled it out into the parking lot, got this industrial air blower, and just blew these giant chunks of dust, like giant balls of dust coming out of this thing, and it worked fine. It worked great after that. So yeah, you definitely want to have air filters on your thing, otherwise dust is going to come in and start gunking things up. And you want to have you also have to think about the airflow through your case, or maybe you don't have to think about it. You just attach fans and call it a day. But basically, the fans are going to suck air in. It's going to blow air over the CPU cooler and over the GPU cooler, and then vent it out the back. Like I said, I was going to attach this to a duct and make a dryer vent in my wall right here and just blow the hot air right out. Still isn't the worst idea in the world. Just having, but what could come back in? Like insects? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. So, you want to have air filters on these things. There you go. And so, right. So you get your RAM, you get your graphics card put in, you attach fans, and all of these things have attachment points on the motherboards. You have to look at the motherboards. So the motherboard is going to come with a manual, and the manual explains to you what all these different things are here. What is this? What is this? What is this? And you have to read it. And hopefully you have a motherboard that has good. You might learn COBOL over the break. I wouldn't learn COBOL. But, okay, these are SATA ports. This is your audio, USB. This is a RAM, obviously. And so your case is going to attach to your motherboard down here somewhere. There's case headers where, like, the power button attaches, the reset button attaches. If you have a speaker inside of your case, there's spots down here where all those things attach. And the motherboard manual tells you where to attach those things. You feel like a rocket scientist wiring these things up. And the SATA ports connect to your SATA hard drives. If you have an M2 slot, which hopefully you do, because M2s are way nicer than SATA. Now what's going on there? Power connects to here. So your power supply is going to have a tangle of wires coming out of it, and basically there's going to be one that's this big and it connects into the motherboard, and you got smaller ones and those are going to connect into your graphics card. And so if you have a nice power supply, these things are modular. You can disconnect the cables you're not using so you have less random tangles inside of your case. I don't see an M2 slot on this one either. It says M2. But I think that's just the model of the motherboard. Should you touch assembly before CSI 45 or no? I think you should. There's a video game I'm going to recommend to you in a second. There it is. There it is. Okay. So right there is an M2 slot, and so the M2s are like, they look like a little thing like this big, and you attach it and you screw them in like that, and then that'll be your M2. Your RAM goes in there, power supply is there, your other SATA drives attached to these, your case wires into these, and then after you get everything set up, these are your back ports, and your keyboard and mouse connect here, and Ethernet and audio. And there you go. You turn it on and nothing happens, and you're like, ah, screw me. Yeah. Or the worst is I got a brand new 1080 Ti, top of the line graphics card 2 generations ago. I turn it on and I hear pop, and smoke starts coming out of my computer, and I was like, because it wasn't as bad as it was now, but it was hard to get. The reason why I got a Zotac card was because it was the only thing they had. And Shenzhen knows Zotac, which is the worst graphics card manufacturer. And sure enough, it blew the second I plugged it in. Had to RMA it back, and I had already sold my other video card. And so I was just without a computer for like 3 days while they FedExed me a new one, and I FedExed them the old one back. Shenzhen IO is one, and then the TIS is the other, by the same company, by Zachtronics. So that will teach you assembly. It's good. Shenzhen's more hardware, but TIS 100 is a really good game for learning assembly. It's not exactly what we do, but it'll get you into that mindset. So I've played it for 50 hours. I like it. It's a fun game. And Zachtronics donated a copy of their software to our school too, which is nice. Shenzhen's fun. Yeah. Play the solitaire. Yeah, the solitaire is actually a lot of fun in that game. So, yep. But assuming everything goes well, boots up, and you just sit there anxiously, and then when the post turns on, whack delete on your keyboard. That takes you into the BIOS, and then you go through the BIOS and configure everything. The main thing to do is check your RAM settings, because a lot of times the RAM settings are not correct. For example, I have much higher speed RAM than they detect as, and so I have to go in there and change the RAM timings to the proper RAM timings for my RAM, because it defaults to just whatever the DVR default is. They have an XMP profile, which is the extreme memory profile, or whatever it stands for. But if I turn that on, then it crashes occasionally. And so I had to go through and find reasonable values for my RAM that wasn't terrible, that wasn't crashy. That was kind of a pain in the ass to do. Other than that, you just kind of go through the BIOS, set up your fan speeds, kind of configure it the way that you like. I wouldn't change anything. If you don't know what it means, just leave it on the default for everything. Unless you know what it means, just leave it alone. Spread spectrum enabled, just leave it alone. Just, whatever it is, you don't understand it, just leave it alone. Ask me, leave it alone. Fan speeds, mess with, check the specs on your RAM, verify against the motherboard that it's actually detecting the RAM at the right speed and setting at the right speed. Make sure your fan pins are in. Yeah, that's another big one. So there's places on here where you have fan headers, and let's see if I can find some. I think these might be it. And you want to make sure your fan headers are connected, and then your motherboard will detect the fan speed also off of them. And so what I do is I go in there and I manually turn each fan on and off and make sure that it's under the control of my motherboard. So I set it up to 100. I listen. Okay, that one's working. Turn this one. Okay, all in one. Turn it up. Okay, that one's working. And I just make sure all the fans are on, working. Make sure the BIOS is detecting the fan speeds correctly. I set up the fan profile curves to the way that I like it. And then I usually go through a couple iterations of it's too noisy, it's too quiet. And by too quiet, I mean it's not aggressive enough at dealing with heat, so it heats up too fast. And so I sit there and like kind of tinker with the fan speeds until it's something I'm happy with. So it's silent, like it's silent right now. I can't hear anything. But like when I play games, a little bit of noise is fine. Because you got explosions and stuff, you're not really going to notice it. So yeah, after you do that, reboot, and you're good to go. Windows turns on, you go through the Windows installation process if you haven't run it before. The power pins can be tricky. The main thing to notice is that there's cutouts on them. And so the power only goes one way for the connectors coming out of your power supply. They only connect one way. There's and so you just look at the ribbon and you're like, okay, it's this way. You know, plug that in. There's an auxiliary, you plug that one in. Yeah. And then for the case connectors, those are kind of annoying too. Because you just have to look at the documentation, be like, all right, pin 3 and 4 is power. And so you have a little ribbon cable that says power on it. You very carefully put it over pins 3 and 4, reset, okay, that's pins 5 and 6, you slide it in next to it. Like I said, you feel like a rocket scientist when you have it all finished, like you're defusing a bomb or something. Cut the red wire, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's actually not that bad. The main starting point to look at, Aaron, is your motherboard's documentation. That's the like if you want to know where to even begin on this thing, it's the motherboard. The motherboard is the computer essentially, and so that tells you where everything goes, what order to put things in. If you've got 4 slots and 2 RAM modules, do you put it in 1 and 2 or do you put it in 1 and 3? Right. The documentation with the motherboard will tell you, hopefully. I've had some that are quite sketchy on the documentation. They're usually pretty good, and they tell you just go through it step by step. Do this, wire this, these pins are this one. You just walk through the process, and at the end of the day, you turn on your machine, get Windows going, install Steam. It's a good feeling to play on your own machine. I've not bought an off-the-shelf PC ever. Laptops, yeah, what can you do? But like a tower, I've never bought one off the shelf. Even for like my wife, like I buy the components and I put it together. And the last thing I'm going to say on this is there's a website called PC Part Picker. One should discharge all electricity from themselves for touching the motherboard. I do it out of habit. And I don't know if Linus disproved it. I mean, Linus says a lot of things. I think he wears a ESD wristband, right? So these things are pretty cheap, and you basically just put it around your wrist and ground yourself. I just sort of reflexively touch metal. Like whenever I'm moving things around on a carpet, I'll reach over and touch something metal that's grounded and discharge myself into it. I have actually killed a component before by touching it and discharging static electricity into it and breaking an expensive video card, actually, that way. When you hear a shock and you touch a component and it stops working, like, yeah. Yeah, these things are super cheap, so just buy one of those, or just be like me and just touch metal constantly. So the last thing, can static kill your PC? What it takes to break a RAM with ESD. That's interesting. I don't know about RAM, but I have done it before in the past. A little spark. Doop. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There's just that moment when you touch it and you're like, oh no. Oh dear. That was 1,000. The anime case. It's too much for me. PC Part Picker, though, is the final thing I'm going to say, and then we'll call it a day. Great website, and the thing, especially if you don't really know what you're doing, is you don't know which motherboards go with which RAM, which goes with which CPU, things like that. And so let's just say I'm going to build an Alder Lake CPU here. Where are you? Where are you? Are you not here? There we go. Okay. Thank you. Add. All right. So I'm going to use this. And there's two different versions of this. One that has the graphics built in, one that doesn't, if I recall. Let's see. Oh, they have it in stock on Amazon. $6.79 though. It's quite a bit over MSRP. MSRP is like $100 less. Is this the one that has the discrete graphics? Discrete graphics required. It's the other one. This one. No. I don't remember which one's which. Specs. This is one without integrated graphics. Why is that more expensive? It's a bit weird. Yep. Anyway. So yeah, you add it to your thing, and then when you go add CPU cooler, then it's going to find like a Noctua or whatever that is compatible with the new socket type. The black one, I don't know. You pay $10 extra just for it being black, and I kind of dig the look of the default ones. Like these things are actually kind of sexy looking to me. I don't know, like the brown. I don't know. It's a different look. Like most things are like neon colored, and I kind of like what they're going for. Their Noctua is an Austrian company, and they got a good fashion sense, I think. Yeah. Okay. Motherboard. And then it's only going to show you motherboards that are compatible with your stuff. And so that's the, there's 3,600 motherboards. It shows you just the 70 that are compatible with it. Sorted by price. $1,000 motherboard. Oh, Lord, no. So I usually buy something around the $300 area. Tough gaming plus Wi-Fi. Who cares about Wi-Fi? Sure, we'll do that, whatever. So, memory, again, it'll show you only, oh, this is DDR4 only. No, go away. So that's actually one of the things about the new systems, is that the, some of them are DDR4, some of them are DDR5. And, it doesn't really tell you which one's which. Okay, this is DDR4, I guess, DDR4. Give me one that's DDR5. Which one is DDR5? Maybe if it just doesn't say. Okay, there we go. DDR5. Show me the money. All right. So come in here. Price. Find something around there. Asus Prime without Wi-Fi, because who cares about Wi-Fi? So we'll do that. And then choose memory with it. And now it's DDR5. Cool. And then search for maximum speed. They don't have prices. That's always a bad sign. No reviews, no prices. That's fantastic. Let's get the RGB version so we can have glowy lights on our RAM, because that's exactly what I want. Storage. Let's do an M2. It's not showing me just M2s. Huh? It's unfortunate. There we go. M2, either of these will be fine, I think. I'd have to check the sockets on the motherboard. It'll filter them out if they're not compatible. So, capacity. At least 3 or 4 terabytes. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, this is a nice one, I hear. So we'll add that one. Yeah, that's an 8 terabyte one. All right, video card. $3090. Ooh, look at those scalping prices. The cheapest 3090 right now is $3,200. Holy smokes, dude. Holy smokes, 3,300. I got mine for 1,700. Jeez Louise. Absolute garbage. Scalpers, dude. Plus by case it fits your all-in-one cooler. Yeah. Case. There we go. Let's try and find an anime case for you. Just for you, Betancourt. Nope, sorry. None are available. Alright. And yeah, sure, that one looks fine. Normally I'd spend a little more time on this. Power supply. You want something that is highly efficient because you're going to be burning power, right? And I'd do at least probably 800 at a minimum these days, just in case you're going to get a 500 watt video card in the future. I'd probably actually go a minimum of 1,000, maybe. I don't know. Modular, definitely fully modular. You want color, doesn't matter. All right. So Corsair HX Platinum, 1,000 watts Platinum. That's an $800 power supply. No thanks. We'll just go with that one. That one sounds good. I've used Corsair before for their power supplies. Operating system, Windows 10 Home. Sure, why not? Add. Choose a monitor. Asus. 4K. Sort by screen size. 32 inches. PG 32. Yep, let's do that one. And there we go. So, it's a $6,400 PC. It's so ridiculous. And that's not counting the RAM, which is missing. And it's not counting the $3,000 monitor missing. So this is like a $10,000 PC right here. And then you just hit buy, and then it orders all the parts for you, and you're good to go. So I would not go this route. In fact, I would probably not even buy a computer right now, just because it is so stupid. It is ridiculously dumb. Instead, do what I did, which is to upgrade your home security, so that if somebody wants to break into your house to steal your stuff, the electric fences will go off. Instead. Okay, so I guess that was our final lecture for the semester. Dahlin, this is your final class with me. I don't teach anything else, so thank you for being my student for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now or something. The rest of you guys, I hope to see you in CSI 45 next semester in person. Finally, get to meet most of you in person. And yeah, we'll just save this as, I guess, how to build a PC or something. I don't know. It's really just us hanging out for the last day of class. Again, present your projects Tuesday, Thursday next week. I'll be here during the normal time. Show it off to me. You'll get a grade, and that'll be it. So you feel like you're 12 with your mom driving you. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, but it's been great having you all in this class. Hope you all learned stuff this semester. We covered everything from computational geometry to building a PC to map design and blocking things out on maps and talking about mood and story. Like, there was a whole lot of different topics we talked about this semester. So hopefully some of that stuck with you. And the file sharing class, yeah, learning how to do the perforce. Yeah. You're not in the class and Kearney's going to make you cry. Yeah. But the good news of that stuff is that I'm going to try and get the school actually to host either a Perforce server or a Git LFS server or something like that, so that hopefully the school is getting their a whole data center set up, and then when you go into class, you can just click on clone. It'll clone your partner's project, and it'll all be set up automatically, and then you can go home and just clone it and get a copy and work on it at home and work on it in the lab. And our experiences this semester are helpful because going through all that with a game jam has convinced me that we need to do this officially at the school instead of trying to have students do it themselves, because it's such a pain in the butt. IS50C, I don't know. I could propose it if you want. 1 unit personal projects, yeah, that'd be fun. Just independent study. I'm all down with that. I'll ask the dean if we have any sort of independent study projects or things like that, if you guys are interested in it. Okay, so yeah, thanks again. And game courses at State, yeah, they teach 191T at State. That is more programming based. because it's an upper division computer science class. They do Opengl Programming. I was talking about that in the previous class if you want to watch that lecture. It's the kind of class that I took when I was a junior in college. And you program things from scratch. Like, you don't have a game engine. Like Unreal Engine, you have OpenGL calls to draw triangles and things like that. But it does like a lot of the matrix math for you. So you set up like, create a projection matrix and then draw a triangle on the screen. So it does, so you don't have to do everything from scratch, but it's in this weird place of like where it does some things for you and it doesn't do other things for you. And so I would almost recommend just going through this book instead, which is called Computer Graphics from Scratch. It's by Gambetta. And he does. This is a great book. I'll put the link on here, and it basically just walks you through from nothing, from like Hello World, into making a ray tracer. Like part 1, make a ray tracing engine, and it's very easy to understand. Here's a circle, and here's how a radius works, and when you have a line intersecting a circle, how does that work? And it's very easy to understand and tells you how you can do the math to do the things, and it just walks you one step at a time. Let's add lighting. Let's add reflections. It's very, very easy. It's a great book. Easy to understand. It's about $40, I think, if you want to buy it, or cheaper if you pirate it, I suppose. So, if you're over break, if you're interested in continuing your studies in game development, I'd probably go through that book. In the previous class, you want to watch that lecture. I went over 3 other books that are also very good for about where you're at right now. And look at that temperature, 35 degrees there. That's what I like to see. This is probably the best one for you guys. And it just teaches you, because we kind of went over the rasterizer, but you didn't do it. I did it in previous semesters where we would draw a triangle, and we kind of did a little bit of that, I guess, this semester. We're drawing a triangle and doing z-buffering a little bit. But this just kind of walks you through it, and at the end of it, you kind of understand the basics of how all this stuff works. So, all right. So, you have a lot of questions about going to state. I'll answer them offline. I've already taken you guys 40 minutes over on the last day of school, which is horrible of me. But I do. I will miss you guys, and wish you all the best in life and classes and everything else, your careers and everything. He does. No. He teaches at Fresno City. Yeah, I hope you all get jobs in either computer science or game development, or both. Okay. All right. See you guys. See you next week. Peace out.